Good morning, y'all. Welcome to worship in the Unitarian Universalist Church of Charlotte. Our summer theme is I am, we are, what's in a name. Today we'll be exploring the ways in which our identity, our I am and we are has evolved and changed shape after responding to a call from within or beyond ourselves to take a risk, make a change, become our best selves. Again, to each of you, welcome. As we prepare to sing, please turn and greet the people around you.
At times, our own light goes out and is rekindled by a spark from another person. Each of us has cause to think with deep gratitude of those who have lighted the flame with us. We light this chalice, symbol of our Unitarian faith.
Our first reading comes from Daniel Gregoire, a Unitarian Universalist minister. When you grow up in New York City, as I did, you'll learn one cardinal rule: to never look up. Whatever you do, never look up to see the second story of a house or the tops of buildings, or worse still, the sky. To look up at the sky, whether to actually see the sky or to take in the verticality of a very tall building, would mark you as an outsider or a tourist. Another rule: never be a tourist in New York if you can avoid it. I tried very hard to follow the never look up rule. And sometimes I even succeeded in presenting myself as someone who looks straight ahead with the kind of steely-eyed focus that says, I not only know where I'm going, but I will walk over your corpse to get there. However, most of the time I was too busy looking up to care. The most interesting things seemed to be over my head, calling out to me. Above me were spires adorning the tops of buildings. Above them, the limitless sky. There were timeless things, sunsets, the moon, and a few intrepid stars twinkling with dogged determination above the city lights. Looking up saved my life, not just by avoiding a falling flower pot, but by reminding me that there is a reality far greater than the great metropolis, bigger than even the Big Apple. That reality refuses to be contained by steel, glass, or concrete. It cannot be touched by any skyscraper, no matter how tall. Looking up often helped me to see a way out by providing a way into a deeper truth that I fumble to find a proper name for. Sometimes I call that truth God, or Spirit, or even the good. Whatever it is, I know not to call it me, because it is not me. I know that I did not create it, and it cannot be undone. Through it, I am made whole. This reading by Daniel Gregoire resonated with me when he mentions looking up but seeking a deeper truth. A deeper truth to me implies that I need to look inward and not up for that deeper meaning sometimes. When Eve first asked me to co-lead a service, my response via email was, What I've learned well within this congregation is that stepping outside of our comfort zone is a great way to grow. When I took the time to reflect on specific moments, two really stood out for me, so I'm going to share both with you now. In early 2016, I found myself in a period of professional flux, starting my fourth job in as many years. I worked at two different banks as an auditor and then became a full-time entrepreneur as an owner-operator in a company that I worked part-time with since I was 16. My departure from that job after 2 years resulted in the loss of several lifelong friendships and shattered trust. It left me searching for more stable and professional opportunities. The interview process for the fourth job as an internal auditor convinced me that they were cutting edge and promoted professional advancement. 3 months into that fourth job, I knew it was a bait and switch. The issues I raised during my first audit were dismissed by my manager since they had not been identified in the previous 28 years of his tenure, and voiced his doubts on my intelligence. I was defeated. I felt helpless. I don't know where it came from, but it is one of the only times where I remember making a conscious decision to just pause and let my higher power do the work. I surrendered to the daily routine of my position and accepted that even if it took 5 years, this wasn't such a bad waiting room with a beautiful view of Charlotte and a large office, and they weren't going to fire me. Thankfully, within a month, I received a text message from a colleague I worked with before that I went to college with. She started off apologizing by saying she knew that I recently started a new job, but that she was building a team and wanted to know if I would consider applying for a position reporting to her. I couldn't reply yes fast enough. I had completely given up, and the universe had aligned to call my number out of that waiting room. I tried to ground my high hopes for confirming that other candidates would be considered. I went through 3 rounds of interviews and had to obtain multiple levels of management approval before they gave me a job offer. I found out later through a laugh-filled conversation with my soon-to-be boss that no other candidates applied for the position. I've been in that position for 3.5 years now. It has been the best job I've ever had. It has exposed me to different professional experiences as a manager of a great team and helped me grow as a person. The picture displayed is one that I took from my mentor's office in May and reminded me of what happens when you take a moment to look up and appreciate where you are and how you got there. The way this job found me in a moment of surrender is a reminder that sometimes I have to sit still, find patience, and wait for the universe to catch up. The second moment was when I began to question as a teenager if the church that my family was raised in for generations aligned with my own ideas about spirituality and a higher power. As the True Light Church of Christ had done in the 1970s, there was a renewed prediction from the pulpit in the late 90s that the world would come to an end in the year 2000. That message did not resonate with me as a teenager. When the world didn't come to an end in the year 2000, I knew I had to get out of this church, but had no idea how. My family chose to stay with the church when the same message was given from the pulpit decades before, so I doubted anything would change this time. I'd also like to set the scene of how these services went because it's relevant to the topic. The same head elder would always start the service. There were about 12 other elders that could be called upon if the head elder didn't want to preach that day, with no warning. So just imagine in your order of service there being a line item that says, Eve selects from the pews, 10 minutes. Jay, don't get any ideas. I'd like to thank Eve for the gift of lead time in our preparation today. When I was 16, there was a sermon that the head elder gave that contained a message with a true gift for me. The message was, if you are here for traditionalism and only here because your family is, it does not make you one of the elect of this church by default. I almost couldn't believe he said it. Traditionalism was the only reason I was there. That moment of clarity, as if the elder was speaking directly to me, was powerful. The elder's sermon was, in my opinion, an attempt to strengthen the faith in the church after yet another failed claim of a second coming. I used his own words and the weight that they carried with my family as a way out. If I could prove without a doubt to my family that I was only there because of traditionalism, then they couldn't go against the words of the head elder. It was the beginning of finding my own voice, trusting my gut, and allowing myself to prove that I was an exception to certain unspoken rules. That I could still love and be loved by my family and not be a member of their church. It led to an approach towards other organized religions with a cautious but open mind. Standing here now and looking out, it's a confirmation that answering that inner call has better results for me than blindly following in the footsteps of tradition.
Our second reading is by the great Persian poet Sadi. To worship God is nothing other than to serve people. It does not need rosaries, prayer carpets, or robes. All people are members of the same body, created from one essence. If fate brings suffering from one member, the others cannot stay at rest. Good morning. My name is Tawana Wilson Allen. Our summer theme of What's in a Name has been revealing and amazing. It now has allowed us to explore deeper conversations with who we are. Family values, things we are taught to care about, and how we treat other people. Experiences in life, when we are called by our inner selves or that higher power to act for the good of others and not we ourselves. I need to look no further than my family history to discern who I am. My maternal great-great-grandfather, George Caldwell, was born on the Rosedale Plantation, which originally covered much of the North Tryon Street corridor and Noda areas. Grandpa George was not a slave. He was raised in the main house on the plantation. His father, Dr. David Caldwell, owner of the farm, set up Grandpa George in business as a blacksmith with 2 shops, one on North Tryon and another on Providence Road, where it turns at the site of the current 2-story Harris Teeter. A hardware store was there before for many years, and my great-great-grandpa's blacksmith shop before that. Grandpa George was not only in business for himself, he provided a well-needed service to the community, shoeing horses and creating ironwork. There are verbal accounts of him assisting people who were not able to pay all up front or who bartered for their payments. Grandpa George was father to my great-grandmother, Vernie. In the next generation, her son, my grandfather, Alexander Edward Henderson, along with his neighbors, helped to bring running water to the neighborhood in Huntersville. This was during World War II, when materials for infrastructure were very scarce. After winning the water issue, they went on to get the streets paved and street lights installed. Alex's daughter, my mother Ruby, helped form the community association and provided voter registration to all who were able to register. Wonder where I got that from. Alec and my grandmother Frankie's house was called the Shady Rest Inn. They allowed family and friend travelers to stay over when hotel accommodations were not available during times of segregation. No one in the community would go hungry or lack any basic need. They looked out for each other. At 27 years old, I became a widow of a DC policeman who died in the line of duty. I wanted to move home with my 2-year-old son. I thought Charlotte would be safer for him. Later, I married Emmanuel Allen, as you know. One day, I came across a place called Carolina Community Project, which was created by grassroots leadership, now a national group fighting against privatization of prisons. It was directed by the famous Cy Khan, who was a freedom rider during the civil rights movement. He and his group of professional organizers created 5 different groups around the issues of the day. I was in heaven. This was an opportunity to do direct action organizing like they did in the 60s with the advent of technology, which helped us target specific population needs. I continued community organizing in 1983. I went to work for Harvey Gantt's first mayoral campaign and his local elections thereafter. Prior to the 1990 U.S. Senate campaign, we targeted 13 counties and created voter coalitions, registering and educating 300,000 citizens. We also worked Mel Watt's 1992 campaign for the 12th Congressional District, as well as the 1996 senatorial race. I went to Congressman Watt's district office, electing not to move back to D.C. After 22 years as a congressional aide, I have many stories about inequity, unfairness, and discrimination. The work was in the trenches, helping to bring voice to people's problems and concerns. One experience that stands heads above the rest, where I felt a spiritual, moral call to reach beyond myself to help a family of Liberian refugees located in a Ghanaian camp. Their 5-year-old son was in the hospital in Ghana with a tissue-eating disease which attacked his left leg. The doctors had given up on him. I called the U.S. Embassy in Ghana. One staffer, who I consider an angel, heard my plea, went to the hospital and literally carried the child to the plane that airlifted them to Charlotte. I made preparations with Carolina's Medical International Division to receive him, and CMC worked with the Ghanaian hospital for the child's release. All went well until the boy arrived. His parents were not with him. The grandparents did not know the child. They came to the U.S. before he was born. He was placed in a double-door quarantine. The second angel, an international nurse, stayed with the boy around the clock. She even got in the shower to bathe him. I went to visit, taking toys, books, and snacks. It was like being a foster parent, trying to help ease the trauma while working to get his parents here. It took 30 days for the process to conclude. I had to go almost to Colin Powell's desk before getting a favorable decision. The boy's leg could not be saved. I met with Shriners to provide prostheses for the growing child throughout his life. At first, Shriners said no, and later responded positively. They said, okay. Angels, I tell you. This case was the most difficult for me. If I had not heeded the call that I feel was from God and encountered his angels along the way to work with me, this child may not have survived the opportunity to live a full life. He is now a grown man with a family and a beautiful baby girl. Sammy, will you and your family please stand? When you feel what you think is an insurmountable call, a way is made. And most times, there are others who will help along the way, resulting in not just who you are, but who we are. Blessed be.
Welcome. We're happy you're here with us today, in this room or joining us remotely. We're pleased to have guests with us. Our members would like to greet you personally following the service. So if you are visiting, please raise your hand and keep it up, like Ashley's doing. Good job. Members, take note of guests seated near you, and after the service, invite them to join you for coffee and conversation in Freeman Hall. Should it enhance your experience of future services, you can find both a large print order of service and a personal hearing assistance device on the table at the entrance to the sanctuary. There's also an elevator available. If you'd like to learn more about us, please fill out a yellow card and place it in the offering basket when they are passed later in the service. Members with a life event to share can do so on the reverse side of the card. The cards and offering envelopes are on the clipboards at the end of the row. Please begin passing them now. Visitors interested in hearing about how to become a member can talk with our membership coordinator, Kelly Green. She's in the back of the room back there. Her contact information is on the back of your order. Again, to each of you, welcome.
From the words of Kayla Parker, we know that our financial contributions to this congregation come from sacrifice and hard work. We are so grateful to this and commit together to ensure the funds we gather collectively do a greater good for ourselves and our world than they could ever have been done alone. May there be an offering to sustain and grow the life and mission of this congregation. May we give in love and in hope. We will now give and receive the offering. If you would like to learn more about how to engage in the life of our congregation, you can look through the back of your order of service, explore our website, or subscribe to our weekly e-newsletter, Currents. Be sure to stop by the adult programming table in Freeman Hall to sign up for upcoming classes and events. The week's offerings include a two-part session exploring our identity through cell phone photography and an interactive activity to help us explore our cultural identities. There's a family potluck this Wednesday at 6 p.m. in Freedom Hall. We start with a potluck dinner for all ages, and after dinner, child care will be provided for children while parents and caregivers have a chance to play board games and card games. Finally, immediately following the service, as you enter Freeman Hall for coffee hour, you'll find a variety of games set up for different age groups and time constraints. We hope you will stay to get to know some of the new people and have some fun after the service. This morning, as a community of faith, we are holding Brenda D. Moduno and Rich Exley in our hearts and prayers as they mourn the death of Brenda's father.
Please take this time to find a little bit more comfort in your seat. Close your eyes if you wish, and join me for a shared moment of meditation and aspiration. Breathe with me. You who feel sorrows calling across the oceans, calling across the room, echoing in the spacious cavern of your chest. Breathe with me. You who wake with the sun carrying a restlessness to make justice and do mercy. Breathe with me. You who walk humbly, accepting that your gifts for the world will be made by you. You, a soft creature who must pause for meals, water, laughter, and rest. Breathe with me. You who sing by heart songs of peace, hope, joy, and love this world into a home. Breathe with me.
Please join me in our affirmation of faith by rising in body and or spirit. We are loving, liberating, religious community, inspiring spiritual, societal, and environmental transformation in the larger community, in our congregation, and in the personal lives of children, youth, and adults.
Our closing words come from Jean Rickard. We have a calling in this world. We are called to honor diversity, to respect differences with dignity, and to challenge those who would forbid it. We are people of a wide path. Let us be wide in affection and go our way in peace. Amen. Please be seated.